Yeah, so beginning from page number 17, Savitri, from maybe I'll just color the lines. One of you can read. Yeah.
I can go if no one is going.
Yeah.
Whether to bear with ignorance and death, or hew the ways of immortality, to win or lose the godlike game for man, was her soul's issue thrown with destiny's dice.
Yeah. So for this purpose, Savitri has taken the mortal breath, just beginning from a few lines earlier. For this, she had accepted mortal breath. This was a conscious choice to come to earth and change the game that has been going on forever since eons. To wrestle with the shadow she had come, the shadow, death, death that the soul that is immortal becomes mortal, cannot manifest itself fully when it is bound by mortality. At many places, these prison-like structures are erected around the soul that it cannot manifest itself fully. To wrestle with the shadow, she had come. And please feel free to unmute and comment or share, whatever you have to share in between. And must confront the riddle of man's birth and life's brief struggle in dumb matter's night. The dumbness of the matter. The matter is not yet completely conscious. If we look at our material body, it's dark. Although the soul resides, if one can use the word resides, but the matter is still kind of lurking, embedded in its unconsciousness. So that's why dumb matters night. Kind of a divine presence is present in the matter, yet the matter is so dark, so dumb, that it cannot manifest that divine presence. Life's brief struggle in dumb matter's night. Now, Savitri has to decide whether to bear with ignorance and death, whether to continue the same that other human beings have been doing. We just accept our fates, like we have been born and we will die. We just accept it, we don't challenge it. Whether to bear with ignorance and death, or hew the ways of immortality. Hew means cutting through. When we are in a forest which has not been, you know, kind of penetrated by human beings that much, then we have to find ways ourselves. The ways are not yet charted in that forest. So one may have axe or something, and while one will create a new path, hewing the ways of immortality, which has not been the case so far in the existence. Now, this is the choice in front of Savitri, whether to bear with ignorance and death, or hew new way the ways of immortality. To win or lose the godlike game for man. She is a champion, as we read earlier. She is standing as a champion from the sides of the man, because she is the most capable right now to have this championship with death, to win or lose the godlike game for man, was her soul's issue. This was the issue, as the canto is also named the issue, was her soul's issue thrown with destiny's dice. Yes, so this, if she wins this game, the destiny of the mankind can change. A sudden evolutionary leap can come. which so far has just been going on and on and on in a kind of a vicious loop. Be get a birth and die, death, birth and death, all that. Now she's here to challenge that. So the destiny of human race can be changed if she wins the game.
Monica, I have a question.
Yeah.
This Destiny's Dice, the first time I just read it, it felt like it's a, gamble. Like there's
Yeah.
so many unknown things, but the way somehow it's going, it feels very known, right? Like she knew and she had come for the reason. So it's not her, it's just talking about the generic way destiny just rolls anything and then one has no choice. That's what it's referring to.
Just rephrase it again.
This Destiny's Dice
Hmm.
cannot, I mean, doesn't feel like it's for her because
Hmm.
it seems that she, like it was all
Yeah.
planned and decided.
Yeah.
So it's just for the regular people, not like, whatever word you want to use it for
Yeah.
common people, that how whatever dice destiny throws,
Hmm.
how they just have to follow it, no questions asked. They don't have a power or choice to say no to that. I,
Yeah. So you're right. Yes, it is like a gamble to win or lose the godlike game for man. It is like a gamble, and there is no certainty that she will win. So it is totally like a gamble. But I believe when it was happening for Savitri, if we like look at from that perspective, whenever it happens for avatars, or even when it happens for us, it's always like an unfolding. Even mother did not know that it is Sri Aurobindo that she sees in her dreams. So although now if we look at Savitri, the epic, the book, it seems that everything was planned, but it was actually an unfolding even for the mother. So if we look personally at our own lives seem like a game of chance and coincidence and this and that, but we have no idea that who has decided all this, right? So it appears like an unfolding because that is the way it is. If I can use the word maybe planned, that is what it's is said again and again, that God loves adventure, the divine loves adventure. And if I just tell you, okay, these are the places you will go, this is the person you will marry, and this will, all will happen, and I have complete memory of that, then life will be not an adventure, it will be not an unfolding.
yeah, yeah, got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank
Yeah. Yes. And if I already know that I'm going to win, what's the fun in that kind of championship? So it's a beautiful play, the word Leela comes to my mind because some things are maybe decided, some things, a lot is left to the free will. And that's the adventure. That's the adventure, that it can happen, it can go any way. So that this, when we are watching these games, when two parties are playing either football or these things, how what a kind of sense of adventure it gives us when we have no clue, 10 balls and 10 runs, we are all excited, pumping up, thumping up. So I think that sense of adventure is always kept alive when we don't know exactly what will happen. That forgetfulness. Yeah. Yes. Would anyone like to read the further four lines in green?
I am ready, yeah.
Yeah.
But not to submit and suffer was she born. To lead, to deliver was her glorious part. Here was no fabric of terrestrial make, fit for a day's use by busy, careless powers.
Yeah. So, although this happens with all of us human beings, but Savitri was not here to submit to this, whatever has been charted out in man's destiny. Savitri is not here to just follow it up again like another human being. But not to submit and suffer was she born. To lead, to deliver was her glorious part. This was the part for which she was born. She is different from the ordinary human beings. Here was no fabric of terrestrial make, fit for a day's use by busy, careless powers. You know, if we just are content in our day-to-day mechanical routines and all the eating, the business of taking care of the body and all that, that is what we have been kind of, doing since centuries. We have just been content, kind of content in the material consciousness. Now then, if we do that and continue doing that, then we are stuck in this loop of life and death, because then we are not acting anything other than matter. Just like animals, they eat, they drink, they whatever, go through the seasons, and then they die. So then we are no different from those animals, and even less than those animals, because animals do not have this evolved consciousness, and we are not even making use of that evolved consciousness. Animals are at least true to their animal nature. We are not even true to the animal nature. We bring greed in there. We bring uh, all kind of ambitions and desires in there, and even corrupt the animal nature that we are born with. So this, all of us, we are trapped in, as if by the powers of nature. When it's said busy, careless powers, the powers which are running our lives. If the body gets tired, you cannot help it, the body gets tired. It's the nature of the body. It will get tired, and we are trapped in that. We just sleep, we go off to sleep, we have no control over that. So this Savitri was not just this fabric, made of this fabric of terrestrial make, that I am born, I eat, make, drink, merry, make children, and then I go away. That's it. And we are kind of used by the powers of nature. We think that we are using those powers, but we are getting abused by all the powers of nature. All the mechanical routines of the day-to-day lives, we are getting used up, we are getting consumed by those routines. And a normal human being is like that, like further it will come a half animated puppet, only half animated, just like a puppet show. It is attached to the strings, and because it is attached to the strings of nature, it is moving, but otherwise it has no conscious choice of his own. That puppetry show, the puppets in the puppet show. But Savitri was different, and that is why in human beings also, birha, yearning has been given a lot of stress, that a man who does not yearn in human life is as good as an animal, because an animal does not have an aspiration, an animal does not yearn. So what is, you say that you are different from animals, but you are no different actually. So yearning has been given a lot of standard when we talk about words of mystics and saints. They say yearning, yearning, you are the king, birha tu sultan. Because when this yearning arises in us to be something more than my terrestrial make, only then can I garner the capacity to touch those heights from which I am born, from which are the source of my existence. But how many of us are able to do that? We don't even admit that we feel hollow. The first is the admission that yes, my life feels incomplete. We don't even admit. We have become so clever that we don't even admit. And that's why those of us who can yearn, who have this longing of something more than the regular day-to-day mechanical human life, there you go beyond the fabric of terrestrial make. And Savitri here was no fabric of terrestrial make. She was not going to be used by the busy, careless powers. The powers of the vital, the powers of the mind, they just use kind of us up. We have no charge, no control over those. Yeah.
Yeah, Monica,
Yes.
I had also, heard about, like, obviously it, at various places, but the last thing was really beautiful. It said, how we say that why don't we get it, right? Like, why can't we be that oneness that we know we are? So, and lot of times we feel that we should, right? Like what's stopping us and stuff. But there was this beautiful thing I heard that said that, how much, like you were saying, do we yearn for it? Say if a
Mm.
kid is late from school, how suddenly there are 200 things that's coming in our mind, and it's just, the all that goes inside, right? That virhe, that woke, I want to meet kind of a thing. And like that's just a simple small example. Okay, if a kid is late from the school, say by 20-25 minutes, where I reach and how I'm so separated here, and yet, I just do a little tidbits and I say, why don't we meet? So
Yeah. 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 And also, I think we'll read further also ahead in the lines that there is a reason that we are not able to have the full strength of divinity in us right now, because our nature get ready only in degrees. So as much as the nature becomes ready, that much light of soul, if you I can use the word, that will be revealed. So the nature has to go hand in hand. It cannot be the full strength of divinity kind of, wants to manifest out of me. And the nature is not ready. It can break, it can shatter, if the mind is not supple, if the vital is not strong enough, if the physical consciousness is also full of inertia. The divinity, the soul's power is so great that it cannot shine through unless the nature also in degrees becomes ready. So that is one of the reasons that our ignorance is shed only in degrees, because as the nature becomes ready, more and more light becomes available for us to be manifested. So ignorance acts like a curtain, this ignorance of the ego, this actually acts like a curtain which saves us from the burning sun, if I can use the word burning sun of the soul, because it's actually very intense, has been declared so many times by all the saints and mystics. Yeah. And mother also says, that's why mother says that don't try to pull it, pull the divine consciousness, because in the measures you become ready, the divine will manifest itself out of you, or out of the matter that you are. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's why they say na ki how everything is important, and it just depends on where you are, what you have to leave or take, and how ego is also a ladder, and
Yeah.
everything is a ladder to a different place. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Would anyone like to read?
Okay, I'll go.
Yeah.
Okay, till the time. Okay. An image fluttering on the screen of fate, half animated for a passing show, or a castaway on the ocean of desire, flung to the eddies in a ruthless port, and tossed along the gulfs of circumstance, a creature born to bend beneath the yoke, a chattel and a plaything of time's lords, or one more pawn who comes destined to be pushed, one slow move forward on a measureless board, in a chess play of the earth's soul with doom.
Yeah.
Such is the human figure drawn by time.
Yes. Yes. So in the earlier lines, Sri Aurobindo refers to the fabric of terrestrial make, and here he describes what is this fabric like, what in general we human beings are like. An image fluttering on the screen of fate. We feel that we have no choice at all. We are just moved here and there by the powers of destiny, by fate. An image fluttering on the screen of fate, half animated for a passing show. Only half animated. Only this much movement you can do because the string I have in my hands, the power says. You cannot go away from that string. So you don't, may have freedom, but the freedom is restricted by the string. Only half animated. And we think that we have freedom, but we actually are, if we closely, intimately look at our actions and behaviors, it feels like a trap that we have gotten ourselves into. Half animated for a passing show, or a castaway on the ocean of desire, as if someone has pushed you from a ship into an ocean of desire. Look at this human life, look at our years that have passed by, as if somebody pushed me into this ocean of desires. One desire comes, after that, that fades away, the other one comes, that fades away, the other one comes. And I am like a puppet thrown away by the waves of these desires. And that's why, very rightly, people have said it, they've said it, about the world. It's the Bhav Sagar, a sagar of bhavnae. The emotions just rule you here and there, throwing you away from here and there. And Sri Aurobindo and Mother describe this uh, clear image of the desire soul and the true soul. So what we call as soul, that it's my soul that wants you to get married before I die, that is the desire soul. We are run by the desire soul. We don't even have a yearning for being in touch with the true essence that we are. So that's how a normal human being is, run by the desires, and the desires keep on changing, and so we are trapped in our desire soul. Yes, Taru.
This word castaway, like you used the word push, na? Somebody
Yeah.
pushed you in the ocean, but castaway, like the term, it basically means na कि when the ship has been like destroyed or sunk, and
Hmm.
then you're the only one like floating somewhere or on an island. So
Hmm.
it's again kind of a happening, right? Like, or you left your ship and
Yeah.
you came, yeah. So rather than
Beautiful.
pushed, it feels like more of a whatever doing or like your own thing, right? Like you let go of the ship or something rather
Exactly.
than.
I think that's a beautiful point. Yeah. Actually, we begin to choose not to choose, as we discussed
Yes,
it so many
yes.
times, but we don't even realize it because we do
Mm.
it in a lot of unconsciousness. Yeah.
Mm.
That's true. That's our own doing. Yeah. Flung to the eddies in a ruthless sport. It appears that we are just put in this ruthless sports, being thrown away by the push of desires, the vital impulses, the thoughts, and all that. But if we really intimately give it a microscopic view, we will see that we are a partner in the crime. We are partner in this ruthless sport. It's not that we are just being, as Taru shared, we are not being pushed. We are partnering, although we may be unaware that we are partnering, and hence we feel that we are pushed. We don't realize that it's my own doing. It's really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, one more thing, like castaway me, it's like, somewhere where you don't actually belong, right? Like castaway on the ocean of desire. Like you actually inherently would not want to be in this situation. You would not
Mm.
want to be in the ocean of desire, but you are now here and you would want to do everything possible to get back on the ship, right? Like,
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. So one feels that I am not of this world, but one feels that one has no choice what to do if not being in this world, right? Of desires and vital impulses. So a kind of a helplessness, if one can say. Yeah. I think that really explains a bit about we do feel alienated. We do feel like an alien in this. If we look intimately at our own suffering, we do have this inner knowing, although it may be suppressed, that this is not, this is not where I want to be. This is not where I want to be. Although we kind of keep it suppressed under a bit load of pleasures from here and there, but it never goes away. That restlessness always comes creeping, lurking around the corner, maybe, just reflecting that we actually are not home when we are in this ocean of desires. Yeah. Flung to the eddies in a ruthless sport, as if we are kind of carried along in the all that, the waves, the whirlpools of the ocean of desires, flung to the eddies in a ruthless sport, and in that we actually eat ourselves up. We actually do a lot of torture on our own selves. Ruthless sport, the sport of being, of chasing the desires, is actually really ruthless. We do a lot of torture on ourselves, but we don't even realize it. We don't even pause to realize that what torture we are doing on ourselves. And tossed along the gulfs of circumstance. The gulfs is like really huge, humongous depths of circumstance. That's what we feel as a human being, that we feel very little in front of the circumstances. Tossed like a cork. Yeah. As if this huge, as if there is a god of desire, who is kind of, who is there, and we are being thrown here and there in our unconsciousness, not knowing that I have chosen it. And as if this god of desire is trying to satisfy himself through, the man in general. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just reminded of something I wanted to share. Like, after the NDE, like, when I was back and stuff, like, life in general, like not life, like just being here felt really torturous. Like, it was like it's too loud. There's too much light. There's like, it was just harsh, like
Mm.
general stuff. And even now, when sometimes like this were circumstances, like sometimes when I find myself in like really difficult small situations, where it feels
Mm.
ki, why am I even discussing this, or why am I in this situation? It doesn't, it's not worth it. Then also, that peace or whatever that was that I felt, it's
Yeah.
like it feels like it was, why did I have to this come back? Like it was so
Yeah.
easy, so beautiful, so peaceful.
Yeah.
So again, this whole thing about how it's not our nature, right, to
Yeah.
be where we are. And yeah.
Yeah. I think there the point of self love also comes into picture. That if we see that how much of torture we do on ourselves, then we'll not be able to do that to ourselves. We do it
Yeah.
in an unconscious way.
It's very, I mean, this word that you use, that we don't see, right? Like, and that's why a lot of us feel so helpless, right? कि क्या करूं? What should I do? That doesn't feel that this is my choice to be here. It just
Yeah.
feels better to blame it on a circumstance, because how can I be here myself,
Yeah.
right? But
That
that
needs a lot of courage. Yeah.
choices, that that giant pile of choices, we don't see that how what I'm choosing, where is it taking me?
Yeah. I think when we are really swept away by a very overwhelming, vital kind of impulse that happens with all of us, it feels that we have no choice. It just feels like that. But if I have enough strength to look at myself, what am I doing right now? You know, we see that we always have a choice. And that requires a lot of courage to see that I was in this situation not owing to anything else, but by my own unconscious choice that I had made to stay a partner in crime, if one can say. Crime because it is a torture on ourselves, you know, being a prey to impulses. But yet we do it again and again. And each blunder like that makes us even more prepared for furthering steps. And as you know, I shared earlier that the nature becomes more and more ready as more veils are shed and more darkness of our own is revealed to us. You know, the nature becomes more supple, mind becomes more ready, the ego kind of further dissolves and dissolves, and that is the evolution of ego. The ego has to go on dissolving forever, and these are the things that really help, you know, if one has the right attitude to learn through these experiences and not to, you know, make it a vicious loop and go on and on in that. Yeah. And also, you know, when somebody is going through maybe a rough patch, uh, it takes a lot of love to tell the other person, to discuss the person with the person, and also if the person is receptive, it takes a lot of courage to tell him that it's your own choice, you can still change it, you know. But usually we don't want such kind of a confrontation because we are not ready. And if I'm going through a rough patch, I would want rather a, you know, shoulder which is comforting and which wants to say that yes, it was not your fault. But rarely would a daring creature be born, you know, who is ready to hear that yes, I had a choice, and even now if I want to get out of this circumstance, I can choose. So on both sides, the one who is listening and the one who is receiving, I think it needs a lot of courage and a lot of love, that no matter, yes, it hurts, but you are ready to tell it to the other person that it's his choice and he can still make it happen. Yeah. Yes, so these desires, you know, yeah.
No, you know, as if in life, this realization only comes after like so many years.
Mm.
Half your life is gone, and then there's this other fight with the outside world also is continuing. It's so much of a conflict all the time.
Yeah.
आप खुद भी prepare हो रहे होते हो, and there are other forces which are, you know, not really helping to smoothen things.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I think we'll touch upon exactly this in a few. Oh, now how is it? I think my papers were on the speaker. Is it better? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes, so what Preeti just kind of touched upon, we'll come to that again in the further lines. You know, there is a part which touches upon that when, you know, that you want to express your truth out in this world, you want to live your truth out, yet there are people around you who get, you know, conflicted if you do that. So we'll touch upon that. Yeah, that's somehow the nature of material reality. Yeah. So the desires, you know, keep on, as if it seems that the desires are living my life, and hence we keep on suffering. We think that it's my desire, but we don't even realize that that is the very torture that I inflict upon myself, partnering with that desire. Yeah. Yes, we will be. And tossed along the gulfs of circumstance, a creature born to bend beneath the yoke, you know, the heaviness of this material life. So man appears to be like a creature who is born to bend beneath this burden that life inflicts upon us. Yoke is how to kind of, when in a bullock cart, this wooden frame is kept on the bullocks, you know, bend beneath the yoke, a chattel and a plaything of time's lords. A chattel is a belonging, not really a person. So man is being referred to as a belonging in the hands of lords of time. He is not a person actually. The way we are as a human being, we are not completely a person. We are not able to consciously choose. So that's why referring to a chattel, like a belonging and a plaything, just like a rattler or something in the hands of times of lords. A chattel and a plaything of time's lords. Why? Because man appears at the moment, appears to have no will of his own, no strength to stand up against the flow of life in the universe, the flow of the flow of circumstances. One feels that one has no choice. How can I stand up? I don't have much strength. And it looks as if he has to just bend beneath every demand that is made by life on this person, the human being that I am, to function as an obedient slave in front of the lords of time. That is our condition, because we have not yet fully owned ourselves. We have not yet taken the responsibility of my own life in my own hands. We have not done that. When I say my own, it means the central authority, the central essence that I am. Or one more pawn who comes destined to be pushed. A pawn is the weakest piece in chess, so-called weakest, seeming weakest. So right now, human being appears just like a pawn, who will just be pushed by any other authoritative piece here and there, who is destined to be pushed. One slow move forward on a measureless board. In this, the whole play of the circumstances, the situations of life, it appears just we are nothing more than a pawn thrown here and there. That is how unconsciously we live. That is how unconsciously we live a whole human life. Sometimes a whole lifetime passes by and we feel that I don't have any power, I cannot change anything. We don't even take the charge of choice, choosing what I want to be in this moment. We don't even take that baby step. Yeah. So as long as the human being will remain a creature like this, unconscious in most part and full of inertia, he would be nothing more than a plaything for the cosmic forces. That is what we see all around. That is what we see within ourselves, many a times reflections of it. That if I do not make a conscious choice, who do I want to be in this moment? What is the space I want to be in this very moment in the middle of all chaos? If I don't make a conscious choice, I will be thrown around by whatever situation is arising. If the situation wants to make me angry, I will become angry because I have no choice of my own. If the situation wants to pull me down, I will be pulled down because I don't choose anything else. So, can I just become conscious of this little thing, that any moment, every moment, I have this free will that has been granted to me? Yes, the situation is really, really bad. My diseases are on its high. My emotional situation is not really great. But I don't want to be in this space. Can I choose to be somewhere else? And then slowly, as we awake to this free will and develop our own consciousness, well enough to direct my own movements, then we become a collaborator. This is the collaboration that Mother talks about, that become a collaborator in this divine process. Then we become a collaborator, that yes, the situation demanded a lot of, wanted to make me angry, but I chose that I don't want to get angry. I don't want to enter that space because nothing is that important as it appears to be. So then we become, when we become more conscious of our own movements in, greater increasing degrees, obviously it does not come with us all at once. As more and more we become ready to choose, then we become a collaborator in this divine unfolding. Yeah. In the chess play of the earth soul with doom, such is the human figure drawn by time. This has been happening for eons. We take a human birth, we do this and that, and we just go away. Nothing was born. We were not born again. We did not allow our soul to give birth to itself. So the least we can do is not to be an obstacle in this flowering, in this blossoming of the shine of the soul. And how do I not become an obstacle? Just by recognizing where all I am becoming the obstacle. Becoming more conscious of my own movements, more and more, slowly, slowly. It takes time, everything happens in time. Then we become a collaborator. Yeah. Because when we are partnering with our own tendencies, when we are unconscious of our own tendencies, we are actually, if I use Mother's terms, we are actually being anti-divine. Ego is nothing but anti-divine element. Why anti-divine element? Because it blocks the flow of the light. In that sense, it is termed as an anti-divine element. Although it also, because the divine is there even in the anti-divinity, so that also serves a purpose. But as and when my ego becomes ready to be dissolved, at least I can allow that flowering to happen. At least I can allow that blossoming to happen. Yeah. A conscious frame was here, a self-born force. So this is about Savitri. Earlier part was about of the terrestrial make, how we humans are usually. But Savitri was different. A conscious frame, even referring to the physical body of Savitri, a conscious frame. Physical consciousness is awake. A conscious frame was here, a self-born force. A force, this was not a birth which just happened, the usual human birth. We don't plan a human birth in the sense we don't you do a yagna for human birth that God, we are aspiring for a soul to dawn upon in our womb. We don't do like that, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know. But this birth, Savitri, was a self-born force. She gave birth to herself for this mission. And the frame was also a conscious frame. The physical consciousness was also very alive. In this enigma of the dusk of God, this slow and strange, uneasy compromise of limiting nature with a limitless soul, where all must move between an ordered chance and an uncaring, blind necessity. Too high the fire spiritual dare not blaze. Yeah. So Savitri is in charge of herself. She is not thrown away by all the impulses and movements and forces. Yeah. In this enigma of the dusk of God, so the mankind, the time that we are going through, it is neither too dark and not fully lit up. So the dusk of God, God has not truly completely dawned upon in all his bright light in the material universe. In this enigma of dusk of God, the twilight, neither too dark nor fully light, because we also see light in many portions, but we also see that yes, many portions are in darkness. So a twilight. And if we look at the whole picture of time, like in a big frame, and we see the humanity present right now walking towards divinity, this phase of human consciousness is a little speck of time where this dusk is going on. The full, the sunrise hasn't happened. This slow and strange, uneasy compromise. What is the compromise? Of limiting nature with a limitless soul. This is the compromise that we have done. The material nature is extremely limiting the way it is right now. And it hides a limitless soul. Look at the irony, look at the paradox. So to whatever the nature relates with, limits are set. The moment Prakriti relates with something, the limits will be set. But for now, this nature is the instrument of the soul, the limitless. It has to work and express itself through a limiting agent. That such is how the present reality is. And therefore, we face this difficulty between the kind of a conflict between what I intend to do and then what I actually end up doing. That is the loophole that we see where the distortion happens. I may intend to help a person, but what I end up doing is maybe harming that person. Why? Because the veil of my ego, the veil of this limiting nature is distorting my intention. And that's why more consciousness is required regarding my own nature, so that this distortion does not happen. That is the benefit of being aware of my own movements. Otherwise, in unknowing, unconsciousness, I just distort the intention. The intention may be that I want to take care of people around me, but I ending up limiting them because of the presence of the veil of ego. And how can it be? How can this bridge be created? How can this loop be filled? By harmonizing it with the soul's development, by getting more and more in touch with our truth, so that the veil of obscurity gradually kind of recedes. Where all must move between an ordered chance and an uncaring blind necessity. So the necessity is of evolution. Nature has to evolve. That is the necessity. For that, it will do anything, come what may. The nature has to evolve. We go through really tragic situations in our lives. We go through a lot of diseases. Even diseases are nature's way to tell me that, come on, wake up. How long will you keep on sleeping? Because nature has to go on. It has no other choice. So it gives me a disease, because at least then I will wake up. So nature is, in that sense, it's ruthless. It cannot be in tamas for a long time. It just moves on. The progression goes on and on. And there I'll have to meet whatever is presented in front of me out of a blind necessity to evolve, where all must move between an ordered chance. It looks as if everything in life, our life, is happening by chance, like as if I'm throwing a dice and whatever happens, happens. One has to face it. But even this chance has a rhythm. Although its kind of direction appears very unpredictable, it may appear predictable to us, we in our ignorance. But even that chance that appears like a chance has a rhythm to it. So when the nature compels me to grow, it pushes me ahead to grow, then I am obliged to meet a newer self. I may not be ready fully. Yes. Left to us, we will never be fully ready. It's only the situation's demands that I become more and more ready. Right? If somebody asks me, are you ready to take up a new darkness in my life? Obviously, I'll say, no, I'm not ready. But when I plunge into the darkness, then some preparation automatically happens out of a necessity to evolve. So pain, suffering, losing people in our lives, all of them come as nature's reminder for us that we must evolve, we must mature, we must ripen. Too high, the fire spiritual dare not blaze. This is what happens when one of us is, what Preeti was also sharing, one of us wants to express, now I want to live my truth out. But the moment I begin to live my truth out, I see that I am hurting people. And what am I hurting? Actually, I'm just hurting their egos. Nothing else can I hurt. But yes, I do create a kind of an superficial imbalance in the whole dynamics, because now I have woken up to my truth and I want to express it out. Too high, the fire spiritual dare not blaze. कि करो तुम अपनी flowering blossoming खूब करो, but remain in your boundary. This is kind of a, the cage that is being put up again and again by the society. You may flower, you may blossom, but do not challenge the structures of the society. Do not challenge the dynamics of the family. If once it met the intense original flame, an answering touch might shatter all measures made, and earth sink down with the weight of the infinite. If the fire blazes too high, if I'm getting too intensely in touch with my soul, my spirit, and getting in touch with the original frame, the original essence, the divinity, there might be a kind of a descent, a response from the divinity that may shatter all that I have known so far. We are not ready for that. And that's where the veil of ignorance comes like a help, because it helps us move gradually, because we cannot take all that intensity at one go. And also in Earth's evolution, if we see, whenever a descent has happened, it has happened only when proper receptacles have been made in Earth. Like, okay, now the human collective consciousness is ready, now a descent comes, like that, like we have how the lakes are formed in on Earth. First, a kind of a big space emerges out of Earth, and when that receptacle is ready, the lakes are formed. So our nature, our material nature is like that receptacle that continuously prepares itself in more and more degree, so that more and more shine of the soul, the spirit, can manifest, can dawn upon in that receptacle that one creates. Yeah. And I think that is again referring to how mother shares that one should never pull the divine, that as in greater one just has to be sincere, vigilant, close to one's truth, and all the rest comes as and when it needs to come, right? Then there is no pulling required. I am not being greedy that I want more light in my life, I want more divine consciousness in my life and all that. The greed is not there. I am being sincere, I am being vigilant as much as capacity I can, and then slowly it's kind of an unfolding that happens in life. Yeah, and any comments?
Yeah, in one of the line, no, one prayer is there. I
Yeah.
think it is from one of the Sadhak Amirta, I think. So he used, as you again and again pointed out, O Mother, make me thine in thy own way, in thy own time.
Mm, beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. So Chitraji, maybe you can read these lines.
Yeah, from
uh,
the second one, no? No, if.
Maybe you can read from here. I just kind of,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
If once it met.
Yeah, yeah. Once it met the intense original flame, an answering touch might shatter all measures made, and earth sink down with the weight of the infinite. A goal is this immense material world. Across each road stands armed a stone-eyed law. At every gate, the huge, dim sentinel space.
Yeah. So this is also in continuation with what Preeti was sharing a bit, that we see kind of a spark in our life, in whatever degree as it comes. And we begin to be reborn through that spark, however little or big it may be, doesn't matter. A spark is a spark. And then the moment we begin to manifest it out, which is a happening, which is not a doing, because we don't know any other way now to live, we see that we are met with challenges from all sorts. The old patterns of the family, the relationships, they challenge us. They say that, okay, do, but do it in your limits. They put limit on the manifestation of the spark. And that is how the blaze of the spark is met in this material world. A jail, this word GAOL is actually coming from the Old English. It refers to jail, the prison.
Oh, jail, okay.
Yeah, yeah. A jail is this immense material world. Although it is very immense, he's not saying that it's a little material world. It's immense, it's vast. A jail, yet it's a jail. Jail for the soul, because the soul is limitless. The spark of the divine that we are, it's limitless. Its flight is limitless. Yet it is trapped. The paradox is that it is trapped in the immense material world. Across each road stands armed a stone-eyed law, a stone-eyed law. Imagine, visualize this, a being who is law, the being of law. And he would not allow it to happen because that is what the law says. So the soul thinks that it may go out from this way, but there again, the dim sentinel space, as if the security guards are pacing. They will not let the soul out because that is what the law says. You cannot go out. You cannot fly. You are in this material world. All the obligations, all the roles, all the duties, all the responsibilities that we ourselves have created on this material domain. The moment we begin to follow the inner call, the heart, we are faced, we are confronted with all these limits. And that also reminds me of how many explanations we need to give to our family members, many a times on what we want to do. If my truth is calling me somewhere and I am a mother or a wife, I'll have to give an explanation to that person that I want to go there because this and this and this. This is the limit of the material world. That other person also does not know because he is doing in his own ignorance, putting limits. Yes, Taru.
Yeah, very beautiful visual came to me right now with these lines. You know how it's saying like the whole material world is like a jail. So there are so many of us who don't even question or try to get out, right? Like at times we wonder that why there is not more of a, wanting to do different things or experiment. So it's like they know their fate, like they know they have been born in a prison, like not exactly that. So they are satisfied inside.
Yeah,
And the few who wants to, question that why was I put in there? Why can't I go out? Why are there barriers and stuff?
yeah,
So
yeah,
they have to then give the questions and interact and
yeah,
stuff. Yeah, be
yeah.
held, a prisoner, and like, being held guilty
Mm.
unless you kind of don't believe in that anymore.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Yeah, not only, not the family members, they will raise the questions, but our own doubts also, no, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
If they oppose, actually, doubts will become more and more to prevent you, I mean.
Yes, yes.
But
Yeah,
I feel that sentinel space, no, that I feel that those doubts,
yeah.
it
Beautiful.
took me a long time to come out of.
Yeah. And if we see that these doubts are actually coming from the beliefs that I have internalized from the society,
Yeah,
that if I am a mother, I must behave in this and this and this way, else I, begin to doubt myself. So the doubts, although I may call as my own, but if I see the origin, they are coming from those images of a perfect family which has been given to me by the society itself.
correct, correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
One more thing, like it's very interesting that they might also not be given, but I
Mhm.
just see images and things around me or say in media and stuff, and I
Yeah.
take them. Like I just
Internalize.
believe, yeah,
Yeah.
internalize or just blindly accept that if that's how they have,
They
been
must
doing
be
it, I
okay.
have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then this must be the only way. Yeah.
Yeah, and like how Chittaji was saying that you have to fight yourself, right? Yourself to get out. So again, because those images were taken in by me,
Mm.
I'm only the one who has to question them.
Mm. Yeah. And this take of disrupting a family, this appears so huge that we bend down again and again. We bend down again and again because family has been considered as, as if it's a god of in its own accord. That we live for family. And that is how a human being has been tamed, that you belong to this family and hence you cannot do that and that. And we have allowed ourselves to be tamed, and we have, as if we have done a really cheap bargain of our soul, doing, accepting it blindly on ourselves. And if I can say, the most pitiful part is that those of us in whom this yearning does not even arise. As good as dead. There may be those of us in whose in whose being this yearning is there, and maybe they are able to take little steps, if not big steps. Those are far, if I can say, in evolution, but we have all been through all the phases, far in evolution, much more awake in some degree than those of us who have blindly accepted. And along with that acceptance, a yearning also does not rise. Kabir has talked about human beings being actually dead. There was once a traveler who wanted to go to a village, and there was this Sufi mystic sitting, and he directed him towards a cemetery, and that this traveler comes and asks him that I wanted to go to the village, but you sent me to the cemetery. So that he said that that is the village I know, otherwise the village you call a village, it's actually a cemetery. Because we are just as good as dead if we are not in touch with the spark that we are, if we are not allowing ourselves to bloom. There is nothing alive in us then, just the mechanical routines.
Isn't there like a contradiction here? Because like we say that everybody has their own truth, everybody has their place in the cycle of evolution, everybody is going through different impressions and experiences that they want to go. And how I think we had touched a bit that how some are not ready and how slowly the chain would kind of
Yeah.
take us. And then on the other hand, we feel that if the spark is not there, they're as good as dead.
Yes,
But if
yes.
we, how it's like,
Yeah, it appears like a paradox, or
yeah,
contradiction, but I feel that owing to the fact that we have free will, one cannot completely say that this person will remain in this situation because he needs all these experiences, right? Because free will is present at every moment. So
mm,
how much am I myself a part of my misery? So it may be that before getting up, I have to sleep. But how much am I prolonging my sleep? Because free will is also there. So, you're right that it appears like a contradiction, that otherwise, that if that be the case, then we would not even need to do anything. We would not even talk to those people who are going through grief. We will say, it's grief that they have to go through, and maybe, nothing can be done, and maybe this experience is completely necessary. Although that experience came to that person for a reason, but the the free will or the choice to learn the lesson and to come out is also in my hands. Can I also see that? So that comes to picture also when we talk about this. Otherwise everything will remain as long, because the hold of tamas is so strong that people can remain in a continued misery if they don't consciously use their free will. And that is why earlier it came, or maybe it will come later, the tardy process of nature. So nature will push us to evolve. That is how the nature works. It will push us to evolve if we have not been evolving for a long time. It may come as a sudden challenge, it may come as a sudden loss, or it may also take more time and allow you to go through all the inertia of this lifetime, and maybe in the next lifetime something can happen, right? So the nature's process of evolution is very long, it's tardy, it's delayed. Can I become a collaborator? Yeah, you think I stretched it too far, Taru? Yeah.
not too far, but just that, yeah.
Yeah, it is true, but you can't avoid that inner truth, no inner call. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't. Yeah, you can't remain so long. I mean, you will be pushed into that. I can say.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this can really go on and on, because I see that we also preserve our own boundaries, and in the indirectly we preserve other people's boundaries, right? So I am kind of taking care of my own ego. I don't want to get hurt much, and I also don't want to share or discuss with you, because that will disturb
True.
you a
Yeah.
lot, right? So
Yeah.
we also partner in that crime of prolonging that misery. Yeah.
Correct.
Mm. So shall we stop here,
Also,
or yeah,
also
yes,
I'm
Chitraji.
wondering that all the lines are applied to our, I mean, whole life. No, it is
Yeah,
really, it's a kind of relation for me actually.
yeah,
Knowing, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Thank you. Yeah.
yeah. So we'll stop here, I believe, and maybe take up the next lines next time. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.